A lot of people have been coming to me recently wanting my opinion on Martin Scorsese's film Silence. So this is not really going to be a review of the film as much as my attempt to address certain questions and concerns that have been brought to my attention. This will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen the film, you may want to go see it first and then come back to this video. Sort of the main critique that I have heard is that this film encourages, or at least is ambiguous towards apostasy, or sort of casts martyrdom in a negative light, or is even critical to the Catholic faith. The truth is, I simply cannot see that after viewing the film now twice. And I think that if we look at the context of a lot of the action of the film, we'll see that. First of all, the fact that the translator, who's constantly there tempting Rodriguez, encouraging him to apostatize, is sort of portrayed as a wormwood, as a figure who's trying to very, very deceptively tell the truth, but twist it in order to make him fall away from the faith. And then towards the end of the film, when Ferreira shows up at night in the prison cell, notice the palette that the director chooses. Very, very dark colors, almost painting Ferreira with black hair and the very, very dark clothes as clearly an evil figure, a tempter, trying to draw Rodriguez away from the faith. But the thing that I think you really should notice is something that after Rodriguez falls and steps on the fumier, when it backs away, if you pay attention to the background, you're going to hear a cock crow 3 times. This, just like in the book, is a clear allusion to the cock that crowed 3 times when Peter denied knowing Jesus. I don't see how you could interpret this any other way as clearly stating, or at least subtly clearly stating, that the voice that Rodriguez heard was not the voice of Jesus. You also want to then contrast his apostasy with the suffering and the death of the martyrs throughout the rest of the film, particularly the martyrdom of his friend Mokichi. Here are these lay Japanese faithful who suffer and die for what they believe, even though they may not understand it as well as the priests do. The priests fall away from the faith, but these individuals hold fast in martyrdom. These are the true heroes of the film. And then finally, if you pay attention to the very, very end of the movie, after it's over, before the credits start rolling, you're going to see sort of an epitaph that Scorsese puts there, dedicating the film to the Japanese Christians and pastors, even putting in Latin that little Jesuit phrase, for the greater glory of God. I don't see how you could say that Scorsese was saying the faith is bad or somehow apostasy is a good thing if he is going to do this along with the other things that I mentioned. I think really, though, the thing that leads to confusion, or most of the confusion, is the fact that so many people are seeing this film Silence as a religious film or even a Christian film, something to be shown in churches or something to be reviewed or marketed as something which is Christian. Now, granted, in certain sections it was marketed as a Christian film, but the truth is I don't think that's what it is. You have clear Christian films such as Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ, or even Hacksaw Ridge, and the other films such as Fireproof or Courageous. It is clear that the directors are Christian and they want to make a faith-based film and market it to a Christian group of individuals who are going to see and support this type of film. But the film Silence, though, on the other hand, is not an anti-Christian or an anti-Catholic film like 1995's Priest, or Kevin Smith's Dogma, or Meyer's Religulous, or even Scorsese's Last Temptation of Christ, something that is anti-Christian, anti-Catholic, that people who hate the church might glory in. Instead, this film, I think, falls somewhere in the middle. It is a film from a director who has clearly stated in many interviews that he's struggling with his faith, coming to terms with what it means to be Christian and Catholic. And so this is a film, a unique film, about what it means to go through the dark night, what it means to struggle with belief, what it means to actually believe in the world today. And it really, in a certain sense, portrays Scorsese's individual struggle. That's why I think the film differs from the book. I think it's only fair to judge a film as a separate work of art particularly when it's based on a book. The book is judged as its own work of art by its own merits. But Scorsese takes Indo's source material, Shishaku Indo's source material, 1966 book Silence, and while it's faithful for the most part to the text, changes a little bit, because what he's trying to do is really focus here on that interior struggle with the faith, the temptation to give up belief, and how hard it can be to believe in the world today. And so I thought he did a great job with this. It was very, very thoughtful and very, very respectful. Some people who might see the film might be scandalized or might be struggled or even led to question their faith. I do not think this was Scorsese's intention, and therefore that struggle would really be something that the individual viewer would have to deal with. And again, some people may say, I don't want to see the film because I don't want to question my faith, or I don't want to go into these deeper issues. And that's fine, but I don't think to compare this or say that it's a bad Christian film is fair. You're really comparing apples to oranges. Ultimately, I think this film is about the struggle with faith, and even more importantly, learning to live with failure and with the compromises that we as Christians often make with our faith and with belief. And you really see that in the last part of the film, the denouement, when you have these apostate priests who are clearly considered outcasts. They're humiliated, but yet they still cling to belief. And there are certain clues of that when Ferrer refers to our Lord, or the fact that there's no evidence that Rodriguez actually breaks his vows. His wife doesn't mourn his death. We don't see him having any more children. And then, of course, the very, very last scene when he is being immolated, Rodriguez says he's still holding that cross that Mokichi gave to him in the beginning of the film. And so it's about learning to live with the struggles, learning to live with the failures that we all have as Christians, even I have as a priest, and learning to move towards an acceptance of the Lord's forgiveness and acceptance of His mercy. Again, I don't think it glorifies this, but simply clearly states this is a real struggle and that many people have to go through it. And I was encouraged as a priest to not only see the reality of the struggle, but I also was able to identify with those priests. Looking at the lay faithful who often seem to be much more faithful than I am, even in the simplicity of their belief, and the struggles that I have, and I know other priests have, when faced with the suffering of people whom we love and we are called to serve. The film is not saying that this is necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, but just presenting it as a reality. So in conclusion, is Scorsese's Silence a good film? Yes, I think it is. Is it a great film? I think time is going to tell. It was a complete box office flop. Most of the awards passed over it without even really looking at it. But remember, the same thing happened to Citizen Kane, the same thing happened to Raging Bull, the same thing happened to Apocalypse Now. We're going to see over the decades possibly whether or not this is considered a classic. I think it's a good possibility it will be, because the film doesn't just lay everything out and give you the meaning right away. Like a good work of art, it allows a dialogue with the viewer. And so when I came out of the film for days, if not weeks, I questioned, I thought about, I dialogued with the film and with others. What did it mean? There were so many layers to this film that I'm still working on unpacking and thinking about. This is what makes a good film. This is what makes a good work of art that hopefully in time will bear much fruit as the culture, as individuals, move towards, hopefully, a deeper appreciation and understanding of faith and are willing to struggle with it, rather than just maybe blindly accepting it or casting it out as something that is unimportant. But again, only time will tell. I do think the film encourages dialogue, a dialogue with others, a dialogue with it as a work of art, and I do think it will be considered, hopefully, one of Scorsese's greats. Again, this is really not a review of the film. I hope I've made my points clear and give some deeper understanding of the true depth and meaning, or at least what I perceive Scorsese trying to say. I encourage you to please see the film and have a great discussion amongst yourselves. God bless.